We saw a wave of terror attacks. This is the threat, a wave of terror attacks coming to the United States and Europe, according to the Islamic State, which just released a new message this weekend. This is why Putin, by the way, is closing down his borders and leading mass deportations right now, while the U.S. border is wide open. And the Biden administration is doing everything it can to let terrorists into the United States. The Muslim extremists basically called on lone wolves to attack people everywhere. So just if you're a lone wolf out there, let you join up. In the message, ICE spokesman Abu Ansari called on the movement's lone wolves to attack targets crusaders, Christians, and Jews everywhere, particularly in Europe and the United States and Israel during the month of Ramadan, which of course ends on April 10th. The latest ISIS threat, comes just days after several European nations issued warnings of potential attacks in Europe by this terrorist group. So countries in Europe have issued terror alerts. France, for instance, is now at its highest ever. But this afternoon, if you go to the Department of Homeland Security to find out the latest on terror alerts in the United States, nothing. I mean, and the United States loves terror alerts. You know, they love putting up, like, they used to have the red, green, whole,
oh yeah, it's our favorite,
the rainbow. You know, so no current advisories in the United States. Don't you find that odd? I mean, they're literally telling us they're going to attack the United States, and there's no alerts. Okay.
Well, when you're in charge of, like, propagating the ones in the other countries, then of course it's not going to happen here because we're the ones doing it over there.
We're the ones funding it. Yeah, exactly. We're the ones funding these attacks.
So you're saying that if the United States is behind it and we can warn about our own nefarious business, we like it. But if it's actual legit alerts from outside intelligence that we have nothing to do with, we can't be bothered with it because we can't use it. Right?
I think that's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Actions are louder than words, and Putin's response to the terror attack in Moscow is about to have massive implications for Ukraine and the United States' involvement there of that terror attack. Putin is not an emotional guy, as we've covered here on the show quite extensively with guests explaining, he's more of a, kind of calm individual. I think people would like him to fly off the handle, but he doesn't. But his actions, so the way his demeanor is one thing, but his actions are speaking volumes right now. Over the past 48 hours, Russia has launched a massive deportation program aimed at ridding the country of all illegal immigrants, going door to door, going house to house, making arrests. And this, according to Yahoo News on Saturday, Russia reportedly carrying out these mass deportations of migrants on multiple locations. Here, check out this. So here's a bunch of different locations going into the airports here. You can see the military rounding these individuals up, keeping them in a single file line, making sure they're going through the proper channels, and then they're being flown out of here, flown out of Russia. Hit the road, Jack. Packed airport. Look at this video coming in this afternoon. A packed airport of illegal migrants waiting to be flown out of Russia.
That is quite the dragnet, right? So this is the kind of thing that at the United States we're afraid of, rounding people up and deporting them if they don't have documents. But then when you see it actually happening, it's shocking because normally we see those lines heading into our country, not out.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it really is a tale of two borders right now, right? Mass deportations. Look at this. Here's another line of hundreds of illegal immigrants being marshaled through, mostly of Muslim origin, according to reports in Russia. This is not going to get any press in the United States. They'll keep this quiet, of course.
So what do we think of this then? They're clearly not all terrorists. We think that Russia is just no longer going to be lenient with its immigration system, and they're saying we cannot afford that.
I think I think the West has been ignoring the response from the Moscow terror attack. Imagine what would happen in the United States if 144 people were slaughtered at an event, right?
We would do nothing.
Well, I like to think, I know, I like to think we would do something. Sometimes we
would launch a war on Iraq.
We would launch a war, right? We would we would go to war.
Somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Somewhere nonsensical and somewhere else. You're not making points here because we haven't acted logically.
Right.
It would depend on the skin color of the victims.
Okay.
Depending on how we would react.
Right.
In most
So,
cases, that's what we
so if it was like a shooting up of a church, probably wouldn't do much.
Probably nothing.
Probably not. Okay.
But it's scary to think the two extremes are terrifying as a human being who wants to have empathy for other people. It's terrifying to think all the terrorists being flown into the United States. It's terrifying to think of people who are not terrorists being dragnet out.
Why is it terrifying if they're illegal immigrants? Why is that terrifying?
Well, the idea that innocent people will be caught up in this dragnet, right? And so I guess my follow-up question was, if those people can legitimately prove a background check and apply to get back in, is that an option for them?
I don't know the answer to that. And I think given the fact that this clampdown is happening around the Moscow terror attack, I don't know. I'm sure that's probably a fluid situation, right?
Yeah.
In the United States, they're just released in the United States.
Right. So I'm pointing out how both extremes can be concerning. You don't want to see race-based deportation. You want to see legal paper status deportation. And also you want to see people going through proper channels for immigration.
Right. And so if you don't have papers, you're being rounded up in Russia and taken out.
Right.
It's
Until
illegal.
further notice is what my question is.
Well, you're there illegally. So, my guess would be, well, first of all, my question is, why were they there in the first place?
Yes.
Right? Like, how are they, if they're now all being rounded up in the wake of this Moscow terror attack, why are they all there in the first place?
I'm not trying to be a softie here with you, but I think that we have to think about two extremes, right? And so since the United States is doing nothing and allowing in, all kinds of people flooding voting zones, obviously that's bad. But we can't then say like, well, then everybody who looks unfamiliar should be shoved the heck out.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's about looking unfamiliar. I think in this situation, they're illegally arrested and being sent out of the country. Like if you're there with proper papers, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about, right? So otherwise, you're being let out and pushed out and flown out by the Putin government right now. Meanwhile, in El Paso, Texas, the opposite is happening. So, of course, this was last week, you'll recall, when the U.S. military were overrun by illegal immigrants coming across the United States border. The Border Patrol didn't have enough force to do anything about it. The National Guard didn't either. It was an unbelievable moment. They're just completely overrun. And then you can see they finally break through and they're in. They're in. Well, a judge has just now ordered the release of illegal aliens who stormed that border in El Paso. So this is a difference right now of two borders, right? It is the ruling of the court, I'm quoting now, it's the ruling of the court that all the rioting participation cases will be released on their own recognizance. You can go in, now you're in the United States, you're just released on your own recognizance. Your own recognizance. Okay, you're here illegally, but we're just going to release you so you can police yourself. So Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, was asked this question, and I just loved sort of her contempt because she called on Peter Doocy, and then she knows she like ruffles her lips, and she's like, oh, here we're going to go. This is going to be a legitimate question. All of the rest of the media that I work with here, we're all in cahoots, but all right, Peter, what question do you have? Listen.
Most of the border crossers accused of beating up Texas National Guardsmen in a riot last month were released on their own recognizance Sunday. How does that make people in this country any safer?
So I have to refer you to Department of Justice and DHS on that particular reporting. I will say this, as the event unfolded, the Border Patrol was able to act quickly and get the situation under control and apprehend the migrants. And we were grateful that the Border Patrol was able to do their job. Look, there is a challenge at the border, right? Our immigration system has been broken for decades, even before this president became president, obviously, 3 years ago.
Oh, that's the rhetoric now.
And this president,
wasn't
a
our
couple months
fault.
ago, worked with the Senate in a bipartisan fashion to get a negotiation done, right? And what we saw is from the last president, President Trump, told Republicans in Congress not to move forward with this negotiation, this agreed plan, this agreed proposal, because it would help Joe Biden. That's what was reported by some of you. And we can actually deal with this. We can actually deal with what we're seeing. And because they didn't move forward, right? Because they didn't move forward with this proposal, because of the last president, and because they put politics ahead of the American people, we are seeing chaos. And so we want to get this
done. It's Trump's fault.
We did. We worked with Congress to get this done, to deal with the challenges at the border. President Trump got in the way, and because President Trump got in the way, Republicans are now getting in the way.
She is absolutely lying to the American people.
Yes.
That is a bald-faced lie. We know all you need to do is read J.J. Carroll's book, Invaded, and where he documents specifically the level to which the Trump administration took deportations to the next level, secured the border, and there was a net negative with ICE arrests on top of it. So they were able to, as Border Patrol, to stop the inflow, and then on top of that, have ICE going out and rounding up, just like you're seeing Putin doing right now, and then deporting those illegal immigrants.
But then look at what the Biden administration is doing, making lip service to some sort of bipartisan agreement, which will not really extend the border wall or increase deportations or staff these places that need to process immigrants. Instead, they're suing to prevent Texas from doing it for themselves. So they are spending their time litigating to keep the border open in Supreme Court and federal court in Texas as well.
That's a great question. My wife is brilliant. That is a great point.
Thank you. I'm getting some hits for talking about illegal immigrants in Russia. So
just because you like illegal immigrants in Russia.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Why do you love illegal immigrants so much?
You guys.
Again,
I know. I'm just needling.
Talk about Israel.
Yeah. Why don't you guys ever? No, I'm just joking. No,
don't
but that's a
fight
brilliant
in front
point.
of the audience. They don't like it.
That's a brilliant point. But it's true. So the Biden administration is actively litigating this, and of course, Mayorkas has said publicly the border is secure. We're doing everything we can to secure the border. That is a total lie. They've completely reversed what Trump put in place. You're lying to the American people, and your time is almost up. You are almost gone. Thank God. Now,
well, and I just want to say really quick, they name these bills and things that make it like they're saying that, oh, they're not passing this amazing bill we had, but it I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 5,000 illegals a day and made the path to citizenship much quicker. And you know, like it's a disgusting bill if you read it, and they're making it sound like the Republicans are holding up this amazing bill, which isn't true.
Yeah, that's the garbage they always pull, right? They use language of, we're going to call this thing the Clean Air Act, right? When it's like literally the opposite of that. Oh, you're going to vote against the Clean Air Act? And it's like, no, if you read it, it's actually a polluting bill. It's a bill that allows pollution. You know, then it'll be like, Natalie Morris voted against the Clean Air Act. Mm-hmm. You know, they can run commercials about it when it's a total garbage. It's the opposite of that. And that's exactly what that illegal immigrant bill was. It's a uniparty, though. Again, both parties haven't done anything. Trump, through executive order, actually firmed up the border and made sure that this was happening.
Not on behalf of Republicans.
No,
by
Republicans
the way.
were furious. George W. Bush didn't do crap. He was the governor of Texas, for crying out loud, and didn't do it. Governor Abbott is a World Economic Forum stooge, and he's a Republican. Finally, now is somehow waking up to the border crisis. Like, come on, this is a uniparty, and Trump, through executive order, was able to put in place a really strong border protection plan, and of course empowered his ICE supervisor to do amazing things. Again, this is a disaster, and she's lying. So today, this is unbelievable. You can't even make this up. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, this is April 1st. You would think that this is like an April Fool's Day release from the the Biden government on immigration. USCIS is now introducing a third gender option today. X is now what it's called, defined as another gender identity. Today, we published a new edition of Form N400, the first form to include the X gender option. So there you go. So that's our new immigration policy. That's what the Biden administration is focused on right now.
Well, the United States added a third option for U.S. passports since 2022. The problem is that a passport has to be accepted around the world, and other governments don't have to accept it. So you can say, oh, here's my passport. I get visa-free travel to, say, Somalia. And Somali government can say, we only recognize male and female passports. we can't, no, you don't get in with this.
Yeah,
Go back and get a passport that we recognize.
What is this X on your passport? What kind of shit is this? What country are you coming from? Are you coming from the United States? Because this is a
Right.
joke.
And then
or
you
Scotland.
think of places you need a visa to travel into, say Egypt, right? And so you fill out your visa form and they don't give you an option for X gender. So that's nice of us to do it on I mean, it's just, it's a freaking waste of money. That's what it is we're going to now revise these forms. And when you fill out these forms in order to get into the United States, you're put into a wait list that's 5-6 years. Who cares what gender you're in while you're illegally in the country? So it's so nice of them to spend money on this bureaucracy and not actually what their job is. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I mean, this is what the United States government is spending its time on right now. But back to Russia real quick here. Something big is playing out right now on the Russian side and Ukraine. And I believe this is a fundamental shift right now. I'll explain. Russia is now calling on Ukraine to surrender any and all terrorists associated with the terror attacks on the theater in Moscow and the Crimean Bridge. And they want these people returned and handed over to Russia, extradited to Russia immediately. This is about to get very deadly. And for Ukraine and the West, this is not a veiled threat. This is a real threat. Turn these people over or face consequences right now. Moscow officially contacted the Ukrainian government with demands under the International Anti-Terrorism Conventions that Ukraine immediately arrests and extradites all suspects that Moscow identified and connected to the recent Ukraine-linked terror attacks against Russia, including the head of the SBU, basically their CIA. The SBU, of course, responsible for killing American journalist Gonzalo Lira, and the White House was totally quiet about it, of course. Will Ukraine turn over the head of the SBU to Russia? Of course not. So what then will Russia do in response? A massive response. Over the past 24 hours, Russia has captured 4 other individuals involved in the attacks, including this guy who's face down admitting to bomb making.
Где оружие?
Where are the weapons, he asks.
Где бомба?
Where's the bomb? In my apartment,
Что
he
собирались
says.
взорвать?
What were you going to blow up? An embankment in this town. So they go into his house and they find the bomb-making materials, and he admits to it. And this is just one of 4 arrests. Now, Russia said, failing to meet Russia's demands will constitute a breach of Ukraine's international obligations with respect to fighting terrorism and entail its international legal responsibility, the ministry has warned. The New York Times admitted stunningly that the CIA knew about the attack ahead of time at the theater and didn't warn Moscow, didn't tell them. The CIA knew that these people were about to be killed. Of course they did, because they helped fund it. They helped cover the attack, according to the New York Times here. The adversarial relationship between Washington and Moscow prevented U.S. officials from sharing any information about the plot beyond what was necessary, out of fear Russian authorities might learn their intelligence sources or methods. So the New York Times admitting that the CIA knew all about it. Yeah, of course they did. The New York Times has been embedded with the CIA, and they knew all about it because they helped fund it. So this links to the United States funders and the UK government and the Ukrainian government, and they want these people turned over.
Talk about not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like,
can you imagine?
A billion people might, however many might be killed, but we can't out our sources because we got to keep that
How could you
close
sleep
to
at
the
night?
vest.
Yeah. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like there's like 150 people that were just going about their lives. They're dead now because we didn't want to reveal our methods.
Yeah.
Like it could have been prevented, but no.
Exactly.
That's disgusting.
And it's tied to, as someone in the chat here says, that it's tied to CIA equals intelligence community plus organized crime, as Whitney Webb explained on our show multiple times, and she's written about. Thank you, Thompson, for that one. Exactly right. So by shifting the focus in Ukraine, you're now saying that this bigger special military operation might be shifting now to a counter-terrorism operation. Think about that for a second. So instead of sort of a defensive strategy about the people in the Donbass, oh, no. Now this is a counter-terrorism operation. And just think for a second while you're sitting there like on your high horse, if you're like in the Biden administration or whatever, how dare they? What would the United States do? The United States would go from a defensive position, oh, we're just protecting ourselves. Oh, no. Now this is a counterterrorism operation. We're going to launch the War on Terror, an open-ended 20-year war on terror against different countries that we deem, wherever this terrorism is. And they're going to seek it out and they're going to go after it. Do you think that the Putin administration right now is going to sit back and allow the United States or the British government or any other country in Europe or Ukraine to give harbor to these terrorists that carried out this massive attack on these individuals? Absolutely not. They're going to go after them, and they're going to face massive consequences. As Colonel McGregor told us last week, the Russians are fuming mad about this, and they want blood in the same way that the United States did after 9/11, whether it was legitimate or not after 9/11. And you remember Putin flew to the United States and laid flowers at Ground Zero.
And was the first head of state to call George Bush and offer his air bases for retaliation to wherever they found out that this was coming from.
So instead, the CIA knew about this, actively funded it, and carried out a terrorist attack inside of Moscow. What the hell do you think is about to happen? You're not an idiot. We know one of the guys the CIA recruited for this terrorist attack in Moscow spent more than 5 years in a Tajik jail for attempted rape of a 13-year-old boy. The CIA sure can pick some good ones, can't they? This winter, expendable pedophiles is what the CIA likes to hire here. We now know that he'll spend...
Okay, yeah, I do want to see those people in lines getting out if that's what we're dealing with here. Okay.
Yes.
I changed my mind on this one.
A Tajik for raping a 13-year-old boy. He will spend the rest of his life rotting in a Russian prison, which I'm sure will be lovely for him. So, yeah, the Islamic State, fresh wave of terror attacks coming to Europe. The Putin administration right now actively deporting thousands of illegal immigrants and getting them out of Russia right now. I mean, stuff is hitting the fan. I hope you're paying attention to what's happening here. Europe is on high alert. France is on high alert. The United States Department of Homeland Security is not. And our border is wide open. Wide open. And police this afternoon in Detroit are issuing alerts about how these robbery groups are now getting so sophisticated. They're using Wi-Fi jammers. They're showing up in vans. They're rolling in. If you've got an alarm system in the house, they're using a Wi-Fi jammer, shuts down your Wi-Fi, break into the house. They're stealing safes. They're bringing whole safes, everything out of the house, right into a van, and they're off.
Well, you're going to be really sorry when you get my dog passport out of the safe, right?
Yeah.
I would be pissed, actually, if the dog passport
With all of his
vaccine stickers and everything.
Yeah. You stole my dog passport.
This would be a new John Wick. It's like nerdy John Wick.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Nerdy John Wick. Yeah. Are you back? Yeah, I think I am.
I think I'm back. You stole my documents.
You bastards.
My apostille documents. That's it.
Let us know your thoughts on this. I think people need to be paying attention to what's happening right now. This is very, very troubling. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. YouTube